Want to sell more books? Make sure you're at the Self-Publishing Show live this summer. Meet the biggest names in self-publishing at Europe's largest conference for independent authors. Enjoy 2 days packed with special guests, an exclusive networking event, and a digital ticket for watching the professionally filmed replay, including bonus sessions not included at the live show. Head over to selfpublishingshow.com/tickets and secure your spot now. The Self-Publishing Show Live is sponsored by Amazon KDP.
On this edition of the Self-Publishing Show.
As an indie author, I walk in knowing I'm going to have to learn all of this. And so I'm actively trying to take it in layer by layer. It makes all the difference in the world. There's really no difference in terms of marketing between traditional and indie.
Publishing is changing. No more gatekeepers. No more barriers. No one standing between you and your readers. Do you want to make a living from your writing? Join indie bestseller Mark Dawson and first-time author James Blatch as they shine a light on the secrets of self-publishing success. This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Hello and welcome to the Self-Publishing Show with me, James Blatch.
And me, Mark Dawson. Hello.
I hesitate to mention the coronation because somebody posted their first comment under our last broadcast saying, if you want to skip past the coronation stuff, the podcast starts at 5 minutes 35.
That wasn't his first comment. That was Patrick the Cop, I think, wasn't it?
It wasn't Patrick.
Are you sure? The name was Patrick.
Yeah, but
I looked at it this morning. I have to check now.
Patrick loves the banter.
Yeah,
he loves the bants.
That's what I thought.
It wasn't Patrick O'Donnell.
I'll soon tell you. Hold on. Okay, keep talking about yourselves.
Yeah, well, if you want to miss this bit, skip
Patrick O'Neill.
Patrick O'Neill,
yeah. I think actually has been posting quite frequently about skipping the banter. So piss off,
Some people
Patrick.
only tune into the banter. What they need is to know when we start talking about self-publishing because they're not interested in that. They tune in for the banter.
They do.
And we're going to get signed by a big label for our bants, big radio station in London. Yes, it's Coronation Day, so we're recording on a Saturday morning, and I'm about to go out to a garden party. I expect you'll be doing the same. But we've got a couple of things to talk about. We have our Launchpad course, which is open, self-publishing Launchpad to get your career going and flying. And last week's episode, we went into more detail about that, but you can check it all out at selfpublishingformula.com/launchpad. And Mark, you've had some exciting couple of weeks because your book's been popping up all over Britain and maybe further abroad. I did look for it in WH Smith in Spain, in Mallorca, but I couldn't see it in the... They did have a small section of English language books. Yours wasn't there, but it was at Heathrow Airport. And I took a picture of it somewhere, but I didn't send it to you. That was probably at Heathrow as well. But this is because you've been selected for sort of the nearest UK equivalent to Oprah's book club, which is Richard and Judy's book club, which is high profile here in the UK. And what has that experience been like for you as a mainly indie author?
Yeah, it's been fun. So I posted about it in the SPF group and also on my author page, a bit more on the author page. And it's been lovely. Readers have been sending in pictures of books found all around the country. So it's pretty much in every Smith's, which is, for those not in the UK, it's probably the biggest bookseller. They do other stationers as well, but yeah, it's a very big chain with stores everywhere. So it's been a big display in Heathrow airside. Young Tom sent me a picture of that, and then Karen Inglis also, and some others have sent in pictures.
Ingalls.
Huntingdon, I saw. Lowestoft.
Someone from Huntingdon sent you?
Not you. Someone else did. So yeah, it's been Smith's in Salisbury and Waterstones in Salisbury. So it is everywhere, which is really great. With some really big hitting authors. Lisa Jewell is one of the six this season, and multiple New York Times bestselling author. Anthony Horowitz is in there with a James Bond book, and Atticus. So it's
fantastic.
I saw a comment on a blog actually saying how did I do this, and and suggesting that it had been paid for, and lots of promotion in the trade industry is paid for. So things like, being on certain tables in Waterstones, that is often paid for. what you call end caps, so end of shelves on aisles, very prominent position. Those are often paid for, but this isn't. So this was Welbeck, my print publishers, putting the book forward. They, you nominate books to be in the promotion. Richard and Judy's team then read through the books and shortlist them, and then they go to Richard and Judy, as far as I know, and they apparently enjoyed it, and they picked it. So it was.
So what is the financial model for the book club, Richard and Judy? Because I'm sure it is a financial model, and I understand it would be wrong to operate it on taking money for placing books, but they must receive money from maybe the industry or someone.
I don't know, but my guess would be they get paid by Smiths. So so Smiths,
which is fine, but as long as that doesn't impugn the objectivity of the selection, which it sounds like it doesn't. So, well,
it wouldn't really matter if it did. I mean, it's a commercial situation for everyone involved. As far as I know, it is picked on, merit's not the right word, but books that they've enjoyed. And I don't know what their deal is, but my guess would be, given that their likenesses and their name and their photos are plastered all over the marketing material, and they carry a certain audience with them, my guess would be that they have a contract with Smiths for a yearly fee would be my guess. I don't know,
because it drives traffic into the shop, and Smiths, as you say, don't just sell books. They make money probably on selling chocolate by the till and
everything.
A4 lever folders.
Yep. And the books themselves are all half price. So Atticus at the moment is $4.49, I think. So
$4.49. That's paperback, right?
Paperback, yeah. And that price is the same on Amazon as well. So I think if you had Prime, you could probably get the book for just over £4 delivered. Wow. Which is good. So we'll see how it goes. I think it's sold a couple of thousand copies over the first few days. So
do you know where they're printed?
The books are printed, I think. Well, it depends on the Smiths aren't printing. They'll be printed by the publishers and then shipped to Smiths warehouse.
But is it Clay's or someone? I mean, do you know who's?
It's Welbeck use CPI, which is a company in the south of England. Clay's obviously is near you and near where I came from, and probably the biggest of the printers in the UK. But no, it's CPI do Welbeck's. So
selling it for £4 something. I mean, when we go through the print,
that works. So if you print on scale, they're probably getting printed.
Yeah.
If they say less, much less. I think if I looked at it before, if you print 10,000 copies, you could probably get it less than £1 to have it printed.
That is incredible that when we go through the POD process and it shows you the print cost before you get onto the next bit, and then they take a royalty from that. The print costs for my books around £5.
Yeah, because there's no scale there.
Yeah. They're
printing one book, so costs can be reduced if the economy of scale. So it's different for that. But yeah, it's been fun, and we'll see. So I picked up my mother from the station in Salisbury yesterday and drove her past the billboard, and that's me. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
So what you want to see, of course, as an indie author, is a knock-on effect for your ebooks, the rest of the series, and getting people onto Milton and stuff. We'll see what happens in longer term.
Yeah, and I'm maxing a Amazon campaign on the first book in the Atticus series at the moment. So probably spending, a couple of £100 a day on Atticus at the moment. Sometimes that, the ACOS will be 200%, 250%, because I think I tried to calculate the read through, and I think it's about each sale of the first book is worth about $12 just for Atticus. And that doesn't take into account the fact that there is a whole world of Milton and Beatrix and Isabella, different kind of series, but there will, people will, not everyone, in fact, not even the majority, but some will go on to try that. And some of those will end up buying all of those books. So I think probably saying it's about $10 is a fairly safe bet. So I can afford to, spend $5 selling the first book. Looks like I'm making a loss, but I'm probably not making a loss. But,
that's great. Well, I'm enjoying Amazon ads at the moment. I'm seeing ACOS as 50 and 60%, which is profit in the dashboard, which is unheard of.
15 or 16.
50 or 60.
50 or 60.
50
that's
or 60,
good.
Yeah.
Good.
That's good. And that's on my 3-book series, so I'm making a profit there. And one of our Fuse authors doing really well. Thanks also to Sarah, who's doing sort of ads for us. But Amazon ads has been a bit of a mystery for me up until the last, I would say, 6 months or so, and I've started to get properly into it. Okay, anyway, we'll talk about Amazon ads some other time. We do have an interview for you today. Of course, we have an interview for you today. It is Martha Carr, and Martha is one of the writers in the Michael Anderle stable. By the way, we have not talked about Michael Anderle's comments at Seville, 20 Books Seville, when he talked about AI, which has kicked off a big storm around the place. We had breakfast with him a few days later and chatted it through. It wasn't quite what he said it was, but I think we'll save that for an AI episode a bit later. But if I mention Michael Anderle, I know some people listening will have no clue what I'm talking about. Other people will say, well, you can't mention Michael Anderle without talking about what he said at Seville. But he did talk about the advent of AI. It's coming, whether you embrace it or not. Anyway, that's for another episode. But let's talk about Martha Carr. So she is one of the authors in Michael's stable. She created a series that has gone on to have 300 books in it. I guess she created the universe that's had 300 books in it. But she's somebody who's very active on Kickstarter, very inspired by Brandon Sanderson and everything that happened there, a man who made tens of millions of dollars through his Kickstarter. And lots to learn about engaging with the audience. So here she is. Here's Martha. Then Mark and I will be back for a quick chat.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Martha Carr, welcome to the Self-Publishing Show. You are a part of Michael Anderle's empire, I think, aren't you? Amongst the other things.
Actually, I'm a collaborator with him, but I also have my own works that I do. So we started a universe together, or Saren.
It's a fun thing to say that you started a universe, isn't it? I mean, that's godlike stuff that you and Michael Anderle get up to. Okay, that doesn't surprise me. Martha, why don't you give us the lowdown on who you are and tell us a bit about your books?
Okay, well, I started writing about 30 years ago. I was a writer for the Washington Post. I had a national column on politics with a syndicate that went out to about 4,000 papers. And then I got into writing and wrote thrillers that if you found them, you liked them, but not a lot of people found them.
Oh.
And, it happens. And then I wandered into urban fantasy where I probably belonged all along and just didn't see it. And I've been in there all along. I'm a big DC Comics fan. I watched Star Trek on television, that short run it had way back.
Yeah,
and
the original Star Trek.
The original Star Trek. And we always had large boxing crates of comic books back when they were like a dime. So urban fantasy and magic. I was the entertainment for my little brother's birthday party when he was about 7. I did a magic show. So I really did belong in urban fantasy all along. I just didn't see it. And the weird thing is once I stepped in there, the books took off. And so like we mentioned in the beginning, I started a universe with Michael Anderle, or Saren, which has, I think, creeping up toward 300 books in it now. But now I'm also going to venture out on my own for the first time since being in urban fantasy with a new series. And it starts on Kickstarter on May 1st, which I'm very excited about.
Okay, we'll definitely talk about that. So I'm interested in the move from thrillers. You said you didn't get the visibility for your books, but then that did take off for urban fantasy. Was that better marketing or simply that those books seemed to work and the thriller ones didn't?
I think it was both. I think it was a combination of both. And I think that my real talent and the storytelling ability had more to do with a mixture of magic. Urban fantasy is a little different from fantasy because it's the idea that magic is all around us and it really exists. We just don't see it. And I think that it really, and then the marketing improved because there was Michael. So it was both.
Yes. Okay. So urban fantasy, yes. I mean, for those of us who don't write in that genre and perhaps don't read as much of it, this is very often modern day setting, sort of Buffy the Vampire Slayer type environment, right, where it's a school or a college, but there's magic and there's people we don't know about. Is that roughly what the genre is?
That's correct. I always say it's magic in a realistic setting. So mine often take place in my hometown of Austin. And Austin's the perfect setting, too, because it's so weird that there are real life things that I can put in the book that sound like there ought to be magic involved.
Okay, because Austin's weird.
Because, there's a cathedral of junk that this gentleman started building out of literally every object he could find that goes up and up. That's now an institution here that I'm putting in the second book in this Kickstarter series. And, it sounds like that couldn't be real, but it is.
Yeah, sounds like a good setting. So tell us about your particular setting then, and beyond it being in Austin, what is the magic? What are the non-human characters in it?
So there aren't any paranormal. I tend to stay away from that and see it as a separate genre. So no vampires. But the new series is called Queen of the Flightless Dragons. And the main character is a witch. But you'll find out as you go along that she's something else that I made up. I don't want to give it away because it's kind of part of the fun of the book. But also this series has a little sci-fi that is in it too, with portals and other worlds and a family legacy that doesn't come from this world. So witches would be the main one, but then it branches out into other things.
Yeah, I did know. I had a quick look at your books on Amazon, and one of the covers I sort of clicked on because it reminded me straight away of Wednesday, the series, which was a huge hit recently on Netflix. I think it was a Sophie Briggs and the Bureau of Secrets cover. Very Wednesday-ish.
Oh, right.
Is there a kind of slightly gothic feel to your books as well?
There can be, because I really do like that. So that one in particular does not, although I get where you're getting the vibe from. But Gothrow definitely has that vibe. And yeah, I love that kind of angle of humor and darkness where you're laughing at something that if it didn't have the humor, you might be a little horrified.
Murder, for instance, yes.
Right, murder, for instance, just for an example.
What is the appeal of urban fantasy, do you think? Because it's enduring, right? It goes back a long, long time.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's absolutely that we all want to believe that things can get better. And we all want to believe that we can create something wonderful in our life. And the idea that the universe is on your side and actually trying to help you if you'd only pay attention is something I think we all carry around. And so urban fantasy goes right into that. Now, there are authors who take the dark side of urban fantasy as well. But then all they're doing is setting it up so that the main character has to conquer this darkness. And it's like in a lot of urban fantasy takes place in the suburbs or in an office building. I mean, it's not outside of what we see as normal life. And the idea that your life could turn around on a dime because you finally saw the magic. I mean, I think that's what we secretly want anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I say I don't read urban fantasy, but I think Douglas Adams is one of my favorite authors, and he wrote a couple of very short series called Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. When I think about it, it is actually urban fantasy with a sort of magical elements. So that's interesting how pervasive it is, and you can read it without realizing that's what you're reading. Okay, so when you started with thrillers, this was a couple of decades ago. I wonder I think
it was more like a few, but go ahead.
A few decades ago.
Yes.
Okay, so I think you started when you were 30. You said in your notes.
Yes.
And what this presumably was in those days looking for publishers. Did you get published?
Yes. And my first novel, Wired, was a big hit, and I thought, oh, my life is set. All is well. And publishers were looking for me and saying, why didn't you send it to me? Which I had, and they had rejected it. So I just kept saying, I'll send you the next one, not pointing that out. And I thought it would be grand. But the second book kind of fizzled. And then there was this long spell of not many people finding the books, but the few who did liked it. And that's very frustrating because no one's saying I hate it. It's just not a lot of people finding it. And that has to do with traditional as well, because traditional, you only get 3 months before they take the book off the shelf. And so you have to pack all the marketing ahead of time. But if you've made an error, which happens all the time, then there's not going to be any changing the cover, changing the blurb. You're kind of stuck. So it's a tough road to begin with.
Okay, so that makes more sense to me because that's such a traditional story of traditional publishing. I mean, Mark Dawson himself had a very similar experience with writing a couple of books that had those few months of marketing, and then the company that published them lost interest and moved on to the next author. Whereas that's really not, as authors, we want to keep pushing our books and marketing. So which is why you're doing much better, I think, in the indie kind of space or hybrid, whatever Andalay calls himself. But that's That's clearly shows. I mean, can you get those rights back? Do you think those early thrillers clearly
I
shows
have
you?
the rights back, and
Okay.
I'm thinking of putting them out just for 99 cents, just to give
Yeah.
everybody the chance to read them because they exist. And the other thing too is, I spent a lot of time in traditional world, and authors didn't congregate the same way that indies do, and so we didn't share knowledge. So everybody was reinventing the wheel, and on top of that, um, we didn't realize how little the publisher would do until it's too late in terms of marketing. And
Yeah.
it's as much on your shoulders as an indie author's marketing is. So by the time you catch on, it's way too late. So as an indie author, I walk in knowing I'm going to have to learn all of this. And so I'm actively trying to take it in layer by layer. It makes all the difference in the world. There's really no difference in terms of marketing between traditional and indie.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely not. I think it's any author who thinks they can sit back and do the Ernest Hemingway life is going to be disabused of that very quickly. Okay, so let's move into your latest venture then, to write a series that you're going to publish yourself,
Yes.
and you're using Kickstarter to get this going. So how have you come up with this plan?
So I have a learning disability. I can't see numbers. It's called dyscalculus, which gives me a disadvantage when it comes to ads. Sometimes it's humorous because of what I've accidentally added a zero onto, but generally that's not funny. And so Kickstarter makes a level playing field for me because it's a great big shopping mall in a way, which I don't think people realize. It's fun to cruise through. It's just that everything that's sold there is an original idea, whether it's a bike pump or a book. And so I felt like I had a better chance of showing who I really am. And then I could go and do ads, say, on Reddit, which I find to be a great place if you're doing Kickstarter to do ads. And I also like the ability to offer things like enamel pins or temporary tattoos or other things as add-ons. Or I'm doing a special edition hardcover that's a heavier paperweight, has a ribbon on the spine. The art goes all the way around the book. Special things that you can't do generally. So I also like the camaraderie. It's just, I think it's a fun place to go and support a brand new author who's doing their very first book, or someone like me who's been around for a while, but trying a new venture.
And Kickstarter, you set a figure that you have to reach, is that right?
Correct. And there's no price. So there's two ways to look at it. If you're putting out, say, a comic book, and it's going to cost a certain amount to do it, and you have to reach that amount, then that's what you set it at. But if you, like me, if I set it low because there's no prize for setting that would just be ego if I set it high. And so it can be more of a fun opportunity to interact. And if there are authors listening to this or people who want to publish, Kickstarter is also the only place that gives you the emails, because I have to give you whatever you purchased or supported. So unlike every other place, I walk away with emails to stay in touch.
Yeah, very good, very useful. Data is the new currency, isn't it? So
right, it's like gold.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the situation on fulfilling the physical items then? Is that something you on your kitchen table with envelopes and?
It depends on how well you do. I mean, Brandon Sanderson was probably not at his kitchen table after 42 million.
Yeah.
So that's another thing too, is I've had to figure out shipping costs, and I have in my back pocket what to do if I have a Kickstarter that goes wildly successful, where I go for fulfillment. But otherwise, yeah, it's you on your kitchen table, which frankly is kind of fun to some degree. Yeah, I think it's fun.
Well, I do it myself with my TikTok shop, and I actually enjoy it. I enjoy getting orders and fulfilling it. It's, and I'll enjoy the moment when it's overwhelming me and I need to outsource it as well. So, there's no downside to that. Okay, so the book series you're going to do is obviously different from what you're writing with LMNP. I can never get Michael's company name.
LMBPN, but there you go.
LMBPN,
yes. Yes, it's
Okay.
different. I took more time. It's twice as long as the book I normally write. It's going to be a trilogy. I really wanted to do something special. It has a lot more research in it. All of the places in Austin are real, and I grabbed friends and made them come with me to check them out. And yeah, and it's a more complicated story that I think did really well. I also wrote the book way in advance of the Kickstarter so that I could go out and get reviews, which in
Ah,
Indieland we don't normally do. And so it also was wonderful because the reviewers got what I was doing.
yeah, that's one of the things that makes me hesitate about doing Kickstarters. I'm a slow writer. I'm always underconfident about being able to deliver writing. Out of everything else, I deliver on time, but my writing is just I leave it to the last minute, and I don't even put it up for pre-order until the book's basically back from the proof editors. I would be terrified about doing a Kickstarter and missing it, but you've written the book in advance.
Yes. And so that gave me several advantages. One, I could get samples and make sure I liked who was going to produce it. Two, I could do a more accurate shipping because I had the actual weight and size. And three, I could get reviews ahead of time. And like you said, I didn't have the pressure of, I hope it's good. I hope it's finished. It's been finished for a while, and I'm on to the second one. I'm doing Kickstarter because it makes it easier to do it in a different ways, more spread out. Or I'd like it's a trilogy, so it'll only be 3 books a year. And I'm not interested in getting another once a month. Plus, Kickstarter requires that you fulfill completely the Kickstarter that you did before you start a second one.
Right.
So you can't. It's just not going to happen that you can do one every month. Nor, in my opinion, should you. You know, it's not the vibe of the place.
Yeah. And how long does the whole thing last then? So you've set a date, presumably, on the Kickstarter.
May 1st. It's May 1st for 21 days.
Okay, so you can't even can you back it now, or do you have to wait until May the 1st to back it?
You can go to the link that you'll have and sign up for a message that it's out, and then on May 1st you can go and back it for 21 days.
Right. So it runs for 21 days, and after that, presumably you'll go over your modest total that you've set, and then
right
from that point onwards, is that when you start fulfilling the orders?
Correct. So once it's done and Kickstarter's collected the funds, so you know everything's done, then I start fulfilling the orders. And also, by the way, someone on Kickstarter a while ago started the idea of stretch goals. That wasn't Kickstarter, but some entrepreneur, where if you raise X amount, then there's an extra reward that everybody gets if you raise the next one. So there will be fun stretch goals during the Kickstarter that I'm keeping to myself till it has started. So there's fun surprises too.
So you can add them in when it's live, when it's running.
Correct. Right.
And what's it starting at? How many levels are there?
I think there's 7 different levels. I'm trying to keep it a little simple this time since it's my first one.
7 sounds complicated for one book.
Well, so you have the ebook. You have the ebook with a lot of beautiful illustrations. You have the paperback, the hardcover, a special edition hardcover, enamel pins, and then if anybody wants to, a Zoom party with me and your friends.
I've got one for free.
Well, that's true. And actually, I do one the first Friday of every month. I started during quarantine, and 3 years later, I'm still doing it, where 5 people win a pizza, and then we join together on Zoom and have lunch together at 1 p.m. Central Time the first Friday of every month. Everyone's welcome.
That's a fun thing to do. So you're really into developing your audience relationship as being a key part of your marketing.
Well, I've watched a lot of indie writers over the past 5 or 6 years, and those who do extremely well build a relationship with their audience. And those who do okay may have even better books, but they're not out there actively trying to build a direct connection to their audience. I mean, Brandon Sanderson is a great example of that. I mean, I think you can even watch him writing, and he has a con that's just his fans. I mean, he is working really hard on that dedicated relationship.
Yeah, He's been unbelievable. It's been sensational watching what's happened to him. I did think there was a bit of an attack article a couple of weeks ago, wasn't there, on him, which I didn't read, but I saw a lot of people jumping to his defense, saying how hard he works. And
well, not only that, it was a bad piece of journalism, really bad. No research, a lot of personal opinion. The shocking part to me was only that the editors also approved it. It said a lot of bad things about that particular online magazine that will go nameless.
Right. Has it all changed a bit since your day when stuff would have had to got through a few editors before it got out there?
Correct. And not only the regular editors, but the copy editors who would check each fact. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was a journalist as well. I can remember that period. Although luckily I had to speak rather than write it down. I think I would have made a lot more typos. Okay. So this is really interesting to me. And so Kickstarter's very quickly gone from something that was rather niche and specialist to being a plank of marketing for lots of authors. I'd be intrigued to know how well this goes. I mean, obviously, 10% of Brandon Sanderson would set you up for life here.
Right. Well, also another interesting point is on Amazon, you can rely on that the most people will read the first book in a series, and there's going to be a slight decline no matter how wonderful you are. On Kickstarter, it's actually going to have the opposite effect because a lot of people may wait to see how well you fulfill the orders if you're legit and you do what you say you will, or they would just want more than one book before they dive in. Since on book 2, I'll go back and offer book 1 as an add-on. So if you missed out, you can still jump in and get book 1 and book 2. So you'll actually see an increase over time of the number of people who get brought in, and the income will actually go up.
And what will you do with the book after the Kickstarter's closed? Will it then go onto the normal platforms? That's
a great question. So no, I'm actually going to start a store on my website. You'll be able to buy it there for a while. And then the paperback and the ebook with different covers will go out wide. And then the last part will be KU at the tail end.
Okay. All planned out meticulously by the sounds of it.
It's getting there. And it's a lot of learning. But, I like to learn new things. It's kind of fun. But this is the most fun I think I've had with creating everything. I think this Kickstarter's been kind of the most fun I've had.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see how it goes. I'm going to click the notify me on launch button in a moment so that I can follow along. And have you followed a particular model doing this, or have you just been listening to other people and amalgamated, come up with your best guess of what timeline would work?
I have talked to everyone who would let me and gathered all of the information and put together. So my instinct has always been there's a million shiny objects out there in the publishing world. They're all legitimate. I can't do them all. And it will drive me insane trying to do all of them. So I go by my gut instinct and I pick the ones that I feel I will work the best with, and I just do those. But I also did, anybody who said yes to talking to me, I asked them all the questions I could think of, and then I pulled from it what I thought would work best for me. So it's an amalgamation.
Okay. In terms of some of the mechanicals here, so obviously you're hoping to get to a huge level where you'll have to outsource all this stuff, but assuming you're going to be fulfilling from your kitchen table, in terms of printing, where have you gone for your print? Is this?
So I wanted to do, so there are the least expensive printers. I didn't want to do that because I've been around long enough to see that quality matters. So I'm going to mix them for the special edition because they print such a beautiful book in the US and in UK. And then I'm going to Lulu for the regular hardcover because they do a good job as well. They just don't go to the special level, but it's a really good hardcover. And then for the paperback, I'm going to a place called The Book Patch. If you do Book Patch, you won't find it. It's The Book Patch. I've dealt with them for a long time. The quality of the color on the cover is always the best. They use a slightly heavier paperweight. And by the way, if people listening don't understand what that means, paperweight is everything. And when you get a slightly heavier paper, even though the reader may not realize it, some part of them knows, oh, this is made better. The glue will stick. The books won't arrive with some of the covers folded. Sometimes with hardcovers, friends have told me that they've ordered, say, from a foreign country, and half the order had to be returned because the books were damaged. And that's not going to happen with Mixam or Lulu or the Book Patch. One advantage to Lulu, too, is you can give them the names and addresses and they will ship from there. So if that matters, Lulu's a good option.
Yes, if you need to scale up. So Mixam, I don't think I know Mixam.
They are so good. And plus, unlike others, they answer the phone.
Okay.
And the first hardcover has art on the book that wraps around. And figuring out the spine with the artist and myself took a little doing. They were patient, kept answering our questions until we had it right. They'll also do silver foil. And if you have a large enough order, it's actually pretty affordable. It's just that the minimum order is 1,200 books. So they do loads of things that nobody else does.
Yeah, nice. And how do you mind me asking how much you end up paying per unit for that?
Per book, I believe, was about $55, and that was on a low order. So clearly, the more it goes up, the lower the cost.
Yeah, very good.
And that was on maybe only 15 books. So that, I just needed samples.
Yes. If you're watching on YouTube, there are dogs. Occasionally, one of your dogs just looks around.
That's Lois Lane, and Bluebell is sitting next to me trying to talk to me, but I'm trying to ignore her.
Yeah. Lois Lane, I think, hears key words from you every now and again and looks up to think, is that
Lois was actually born deaf.
Oh.
So she can't hear anything, but she's terribly nosy.
She knows something's going on. Okay,
right.
So if you're watching on YouTube. Okay, so that's, I will look into Mixam. Actually, I can see they're in the UK as well, so that's
yes.
good. And I know Lulu obviously are, so... and good luck with that. So we will follow that along. And in terms of your writing with Michael, LMNBP.
LMBPN.
I'm never going to say it. I'm never going to say it right. It's a crazy name. Anyway, I've told him that. You can only tell him so many times. The series there and the universe, which has grown out of all proportion. Was this you and Michael? You were the ones who sketched this universe out at the beginning?
This was the beginning of everything. At the very back when we were kind of flying by the seat of our pants, if you had an idea, we were going to try it. And he had an idea for how these two worlds, Orosaren and Earth, every, I think it's 20,000 years, comes close enough that magic from Orosaren flows into Earth. And then I came up with the backstory of the Lyra Chronicles and the backstory of Lyra. And together we came up with the idea of the troll. And then I wrote, there's a lot of swearing in the Lyra Chronicles. That's somewhat me, but I've tamped it down. Don't worry for the new series. Anyway, the troll's name is Yum Fuck Tiberius Troll, because that's what he kept saying, yum and fuck, and I thought it was funny.
Excellent.
So, yes, and Yum Fuck has become beloved. He has his own page on Facebook, and people go on Facebook to talk to him, and he answers you back.
Nice.
Yeah.
When you write, do you write fairly clean? I don't mean the language, obviously that's not clean,
right.
But the
I do. And that's 30 some years of writing. I didn't start that way at all. And the Washington Post was a great training ground for that, because you pass through 3 editors, where at a newspaper, maybe there's initially 1, and they all ask you such really good questions that you have to raise your game. And yes, by now I write very clean. Doesn't mean that the editor doesn't find things like, you said she was meeting him at the store, and now she's meeting him on the sidewalk. Yeah. But they're easy fixes to go back and change. It's not like they're saying this whole section doesn't work.
Yeah. No, so you're getting it at, that's part of the production process, being efficient, is that first draft being almost ready to go.
Right. And I do think that's a big difference, because back when I was writing the thrillers, I, for some reason, thought people wanted the long history behind something like I did. No, they don't. No, they don't. No. And
we all start writing like that.
I thought it was fascinating, wouldn't you? And so I think I worked out all of my weirdness in all these other books. And also that's what doing one a month helps too, because there's no time to go on and on and on. I think in terms of that, I actually got better when I had less time because I wasn't adding on so much.
Do you know, you've just made me thought of my first draft of my first novel that had so many flashbacks in it that they became kind of nested flashbacks of describing where they all came from, what they'd done in the past. And yeah, I think probably half the book was just somebody thinking about how they got to where they are. But I've just thought, you know, I've been umming and ahhing about potentially doing some bonus chapters of my first book. I should go back to that first draft because there's a lot of prequel stuff in there.
There you go.
There you go.
You could do short stories on the side and just take those out and put them out as short stories for $1. Yeah. And then that would pull people to your series because they only had to pay $1, and then they would go and look for the rest.
That's such a good idea. I should do that. Especially as I wrote a novella to do a kind of freebie, but it's selling so well. I'm kind of reluctant so far to put it into free. So I'm going to let it run its course and we'll see. Perhaps we'll do something else.
Also, my experience with free is that a lot of people who don't like the genre will pick it up because it's free. They'll never read it, or they will
read a bad review.
It. Yes. So I don't think it's worth it. I would pull those and do 99 cents because for $1, people will try it. They get a taste of your writing. If they like you, they'll search out the rest. It's the best way to do it. If they aren't interested in paying $1, they're not interested in paying for the book.
Yeah. To dig out my old manuscript is going to be hilarious, looking like what my writing was like then. So I'm intrigued by your productivity again. So just a couple more questions on that. How do you write, Martha? Do you dictate, or do you write on Scrivener or Word? Or
I write on Scrivener. I'm sitting in my guest room because Lois loves to bark at the window. Friends of mine lovingly call my office Lois's office, and but I just gave up. She's had every training under the sun, and still loves to bark, can't hear herself, so barks very loud. And so I set a certain amount of time and a certain amount of words. And if it goes fast, then I can get up. If it doesn't, then I sit there. And I've just been doing, you were a journalist. If they say they need 30 inches, they're going to get 30 inches. Yes. And if they're telling you have an hour, then you have 1 hour. And it better be pretty clean because there's not a lot of time for anybody to fix it. So I've always thought if you come from a journalism background, you're much better at deadlines and at just doing it and at using one adjective instead of 3. Because there was back then, before the internet, there was literally a limited space. And I used to be able to know, I can't remember anymore, but how many words was how many inches. And that's what you did. So it's really finding a goal that you can live with and then making it a priority. So friends know I'm not going to answer the phone in the morning. So, you can try, but I'm really not going to answer the phone. I'm not going to schedule things for the morning because that's my best writing time when all the words are still there. And I really have to treat it with respect and make it a priority. All the marketing is going to be in the afternoon. So the writing has to come first.
Yeah. The advantage of being a journalist is having that deadline. The disadvantage is without a deadline, you don't do it. I do find you do have to create some deadlines.
You have to create deadlines. So let's say because it's me, I picked a date when I want the book to be finished. Then I work backwards on how many words a day would I have to do in order to hit that deadline. And that's without the weekends. Working 5 days a week, how many words per day? Is it reasonable? And then I try to build in a little, I found, something too fun to pass up that I want to do on a work day and go from there. So I know if I've done X amount of words, I'm still on track. If I haven't, then I haven't. Scrivener, by the way, used to, I put in the amount of words at the goal and it starts at blazing red and slowly goes to green. And I love that. And too many people must have complained because in the updated version, it just goes from green to blue. But I know I loved how you'd watch it slowly go from red alert down
it must have triggered some people's anxieties.
Right. But I loved it.
Yes.
Anyway, I can watch that word count too. And It really, 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 really helps to have an outline so that I know where I'm going. And I move the piece in Scrivener, I move the pieces around every time a little bit. Or I add in a chapter or two where I can see there's not enough of a bridge. And
yeah, I love it for that. Yeah, I don't know how people who write in Word end up with that. I mean, 100,000 word document is so unwieldy for me.
I don't either. I don't know how they end up with a document that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, you just got to be making it harder on yourself on that big of a project. Plus, let's say you get sick for a week and now you're coming back. Where were you?
Yeah.
And I know I can look and see where I was.
Yeah, before I knew about Scrivener and hadn't used words, I used to use like 5 X's in a row, so I could search on those 5 X's and find it. And,
right.
and God knows how many of them I left in the document had to be cleared out at the end. But there you go. Okay, it's been lovely talking to you, Martha. I've got one more question about Lois, which is she was born deaf.
Yes.
So she has no concept of sound.
No.
That she doesn't know that she's deaf.
She doesn't know and doesn't care, and she understands sign language. And when she doesn't want to listen to me, she rolls her eyes away from me. So much like a teenager.
Yeah.
Yes. And also it means that if she knows that if she wants to do something and doesn't want to get stopped, she'll turn her back to me because she knows I have to run all the way to her in order to stop her. Yeah, she's extremely clever.
Yeah.
And she loves to play tag and hide and go seek. She will search slowly for you. All dogs do this though, but it's so funny that dogs will play hide and go seek with you.
Yeah, that's lovely. I'm sure she must have appeared in some of your books at some point.
She has not, but Bluebell and my dog who passed away a year and a half ago, Leela, the pit bulls do appear, and I do that partially because I adore pit bulls, and I don't think a lot of people understand them. And Bluebell is elderly and can go 5 miles an hour tops. That's on when she's really moving. But people go on the other side of the street from us. And she is so sweet. So in Queen of the Flightless Dragons, there's a pit bull named Hannah. There'll always be pit bulls in the books.
Well,
in the side books.
Of course, Craig Martell has Stanley, who's another sort of Michelangelo writer, of course. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Martha, look, good luck with the Kickstarter. I'm going to sign up today and follow it along. I am intrigued by that. I love also interviews that make me think I've got to be better at writing and come up with good ideas for myself. And that's kind of the point of our interviews, really. Hopefully other people have been listening to this and been inspired by a few things that you've done. So thank you very much indeed for coming on.
Oh, thank you very much for asking me. It's been a lot of fun.
We should just say, in case we didn't say it clearly, I mean, I just searched on Martha Carr and Kickstarter and it came up straight away. But is there a specific link you've set up to get people there quickly? There
is. And the easiest way is to go to Kickstarter and search Martha Carr. The series is called Queen of the Flightless Dragons. The first book is called Amon. It looks like Emon, but I like to use Irish words.
Yeah, so in the UK, people would know that's Amon.
Okay, well, all over the US, they'd say Emon. So you're looking for Eamon, but it's pronounced Amon. And it means wealthy protector. So the second book is Lacer, and that means fire. So it gives you a hint at what's coming next.
Very good. Okay, excellent. Martha, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
There you go. There is Martha Carr, Kickstarter. Hearing more and more about people using Kickstarter. I think, I listened to it, and I think probably because I write slowly and I'm underconfident about writing still and underconfident about getting my book out at any particular time. I'm just too busy to be able to say I'm going to have this book out in September the 1st and run a Kickstarter. So I don't think it's for me. But otherwise, I am tempted by the whole process. I like the engagement with fans, the direct engagement with fans that is something indie authors are really embracing.
Yeah, I mean, you could do. If you got to you could see the end, see the finish line, but it was late stage editing. You say this definitely, I can release this in a month. Then you could put it up then. That would work. I mean, for me, it isn't for me. It doesn't fit my model. I work very hard to make sure that Amazon markets the book once it's out there, and I think every sale you take away from Amazon reduces the data that Amazon has on potential readers it can market to. And it's just kind of common sense would suggest that Amazon's not making as much money off that book, is less likely to try and make more money off it. So it's not for me. But for those people who are, not relying on Amazon in the way that I do, it
worked for Brandon.
Well, he's a definite outlier. He couldn't be more an outlier. People don't make 41 million on book Kickstarters as a matter of course. But you see, I saw Joanna Penn had a Kickstarter for her pilgrimage book, and I spoke to her. She won't hear this. She listens to the intro and then doesn't bother to listen to anything else. But anyway,
she loves the bands.
She does love the bands. And in the event that she is listening, perhaps I'll tell her that she should listen on. But no, she did. I think did 25,000 or something along those lines. After putting the book up there, and we had a bit of an email conversation, she was very worried that she wouldn't hit 1,000. And I'm saying, Joanna, you'll hit 1,000 in about two minutes. And obviously she did. And I think she enjoyed that process, did well for her. But she had a big audience ready to support her with that book. For me, I could do it, but it just doesn't really suit me. So it's not something I'll be trying. But good for Martha, and good for those who are able to make it work for them.
Yeah. Well, check it out. Go and check out Martha Carr's Kickstarter, and which is still running at this time. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for the team in the background make this podcast happen. Thank you to our Patreon supporters as well. We will be back next week. All that remains for me to say is it's a goodbye from him.
And a goodbye from me. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Get show notes, the podcast archive, and free resources to boost your writing career at selfpublishingshow.com. Join our thriving Facebook group at selfpublishingshow.com/Facebook. Support the show at patreon.com/selfpublishingshow. And join us next week for more help and inspiration so that you can make your mark as a successful indie author. Publishing is changing, so get your words into the world and join the revolution with The Self-Publishing Show.